I spent a lot of time thinking about masculinity, both for myself as well as what I'm looking for in other people. I'll explain the myself part first, because the other people one is obvious is probably more obvious in like a dating context or even in like different kinds of relationships. But for myself, I've thought a lot about it since I was a kid, because I was always told that I was too masculine. I was too boyish. There's a phrase in Chinese called 男孩子性, which is like almost like boy style, like boy, like, yeah, like boy version kind of. I don't know the exact translation, but it's almost like essence. It's like the boy essence. And as a kid, I was super like energetic, playful. I'm like very athletic. And so I liked to be physical, and I wanted to play like every sport. My mom wouldn't let me because she was like, that's not what girls do. Like, I wanted to play the saxophone, and my mom was like, no, that's not very elegant. You should play the piano. I wanted to wear like baggy clothes and sporty clothes and track pants and like sweatshirts. My mom was like, you need to dress more like a girl. I liked blues and greens and whites and blacks and grays. And my mom was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why can't you just like be a girl? And so this notion of like what it means to be a girl has been with me since I was probably like 4 or 5. I was always getting in trouble for being too hyper, too active. My mom would call me like another phrase in Chinese called "tiaopi," which is like mischievous and rambunctious. And I was like, but I'm just being me. And so I started to say from a really young age, I don't know when it started, but I just started telling everybody, I'm like, I should be a boy. Like, I should have been born a boy. And I don't mean in like it's like, I don't mean that I wanted like surgery and like to, have boy body parts. At least just wasn't it for me. What I really meant as I look back is that I wanted to be able to be me. And because people called that masculine or boyish, I was like, okay, well then I should have been a boy. And as I got older, the thing that I had to learn is like how to embody my feminine more. And it has been like an interesting journey, because every single one of us embodies our masculine and our feminine like energies. And so how popular or how much we talk about masculinity these days and toxic masculinity and what it means to be a man, like, it's such an interesting thing to consider for someone like me who spent my whole life as a girl being told I'm too masculine, trying to figure out how to be more, how to balance my feminine, is the fact that it's not singular. Like, we all have masculine and feminine energies. We all feel, which is associated with our more feminine energy. We've all been sad. We've all been grieving. We've all been hurt. And in a world where we don't allow boys to feel, that is one that's going to inevitably be filled with pain and suffering, because humans are here to feel. In the same way that women can be really good at problem solving, which is a more masculine energy, the doing energy, the like get shit done mode, like women are incredible at that. And that's a masculine energy thing to embody. And so I just wish more of us would think less about what it means to be X or Y, but rather, what does it mean to be you? And what does it mean to balance your masculine and feminine energies together? And for me, like, because plus some of the dynamics I had growing up, like I was an only child with a single mom who was like very feminine, very petite, like always dressed up, even to go to the grocery store, like not very physically strong. And so even though I'm not like a huge person, like I developed like certain strengths around like being more capable around the house, like fixing things, like figuring how stuff worked. Like when there were VCRs, like how do you record things? Like I was the one to figure out all the tech. And so I was very much like a problem solver and a doer and a get shit done, because oftentimes my mom either didn't have the strength or the ability to do so, or leaned on me to do those things, which I was good at. But because she was very like emotionally kind of volatile, like there wasn't a lot of space for my emotions when I was growing up. And so I didn't have a lot of spaces to feel. And I think that's partly why I got so into sports, because sports were like such a place, like you could feel everything from like pure joy to like rage. And so it took me a long time to like balance my like doing, get shit done, problem solve, like figure out the solution. I can jump in and like, be hands-on, all that stuff, to sit more in like my like flowy feeling like state, and to be more sensitive and empathetic, and how to express that in a way that felt good to me. Like that took a while. It's not that it wasn't in me. It's just it took a while for me to figure out how to express it, because I didn't have the practice or the space growing up to express it. And this isn't just, I hope like whether you're a guy or a girl or whatever you identify as, like watching this, like I think this is true of every single person. Because if I know so many men in my life now, like dear friends of mine, who are deeply sensitive souls, who feel so much and are really perceptive and understand the world through a very like feeling sense, and they didn't have the space for that growing up. And they were constantly like beat down for being emotional and sensitive. And so now a lot of them suffer in a lot of ways, really deep ways, where they don't know how to express themselves. They hide that part of themselves, and it's caused them like deep pain and suffering. And from a specific like boy lens, guy lens, man lens, I think about masculinity so much because of like dating, and because I'm someone who very much is in touch with my masculine energy, like, and I'd like to think that now I feel more balanced in it, but because I am very capable and I can problem solve very strategically and thoughtfully, and like I am like always trying to figure out like who can balance and match my masculine energy. Because in a heterosexual dynamic, like I still want to be cared for, not taken care of, like in a kind of monetary sense, or even in a like provider sense. Though that's nice, it's more about the balance to me. Like, how can we both be problem solvers? How can we both be feelers and like empaths? How can we both be like doers to get shit done, but together? And all like what's so much of like I see on the internet in terms of like what it means to be a man, whether it's from the like Andrew Tates and Jordan Petersons of the world, or whether it's from like, I don't know, I feel like those are the names that come up in terms of like the most egregiously loud about what it means to be a man. It's like, who the fuck are they? They're one person. Who the fuck cares what they think? Like, or all these YouTubers who talk about this is what it means to be a man, this is how you speak, this is how you dress, this is how you work out, this is what you eat, this is the business you run, this is like, the women you need to be with. It's like, who the fuck are these people? And why should anyone listen to them? In terms of, I'm not saying they have no value, I just mean in terms of what it means to be a man. Like each person can decide for themselves. Each man can decide for themselves what it means to be a man. Because the most like incredible men that I have known and the most masculine men I've known are the ones who don't need to wear it, who don't need to show you how much of a man they are, who don't need to like wear the badge by like wearing certain clothes or not wearing clothes and like showing off like the fruits of their like workout labor, or men who need to be authoritative in terms of like their opinion and what they think. The most masculine men are ones who just know how, who embody it. Like embodied masculinity is what is the most attractive, like sexy thing in a man, when they don't have to do or say anything, but you can just feel it by being around them. Because fundamentally, it comes from a security in who they are. And yes, working out can add to that. And yes, making money can add to that and feeling like you can provide. And yes, like being confident and sure of, you know, your self is valuable. But none of that matters none of that matters if you don't have the foundational thing, which is a love and trust in yourself. Because there are plenty of men who do the working out, who eat well, who dress well, who, you know, manicure themselves well, who say certain things. But inside, they're weak as hell. That whole facade can be built on a house of cards. And you like accidentally trigger it one day and it just fucking crumbles. And so whether it is being a man or being a woman, like at the end of the day, like it's building your mental freedom and strength to be secure in who you are and to define for ourselves what it means to be a good man or a good woman or a good person. You don't have to listen to anyone else. And that's why I say, like, who the fuck are these people? Why does their definition trump yours? For everybody that shares insights, we need to be discerning about what we take in. We can take in what we think is valuable. But if we start to just sound like a talk track for other people, then that's not original thought. That's just regurgitation of other people or the internet. Even good ideas, like it requires us to really kind of take it in, think about it, sit with it, and see whether we want to incorporate it into our worldview and how we want to incorporate it. And for all the talk about masculinity and being a man, like there's nothing wrong with it. It's great. I think it's an important thing for men and women to think about what it means to embody their masculinity and femininity. But for both sides, we also have to think about what it means to embody the other. Because otherwise, it's just imbalanced. And for a long time, actually, a lot of my early relationships, like, I had a lot of guys who were just like, you're too serious, or you're not, like, what they wanted. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, you just want some, like, feminine, like, little, like, soft girl. And it's not so much, it's not that, like, they were right and I was wrong, or I was right and they were wrong. It's just simply that, like, there is something about humans, like, wanting balance. Like, we're sensing beings. We can sense when things are out of balance. The most obvious example is like when Like things are good. Things feel steady, right? Things feel like people are happy. No one's upset. Like things are going well. Like that feels like balance. It's not a crazy high. It's not crazy low. But then someone's upset. Things are out of balance. And so that's just a plain everyday example, but in the context of like a relationship, you can feel that very much so. If someone is like a lot of like doing, problem solving, get shit done energy, there isn't a lot of room for that gentleness, right? And if the other person isn't that, and two of you embody more of the like doing, get shit done energy, like something may be missing. And so the feedback that I had gotten like early in some of my relationships, it's not that they were completely right outright, but there was value in what they were sharing to me, which is that I was like, oh, yeah, it's not that you need a soft girl per se. It's just that sometimes like a guy wants things to be like softer and gentler and like, you know, more like sweet and feminine. And it's been a really like fun learning journey for me to figure out like how do I balance those two things so that they can coexist in a way that's very embodied, right? That isn't like, oh, I have to think about what it means to be more feminine. At least not now. Maybe early on I had to do that more. But for each of us, I think it's, you know, the internet's an incredible place where there's just so much information out there. But because of how much information is out there and because of how quickly people can gain influence, it's so important that we then take it in and decide for ourselves what we want to allow like into our lives and what we want to allow to define us and really start to shape us. Shape the person that we are. Because it's a powerful thing to let somebody like into your life to really shape you. And I don't mean that, you know, we can't listen to anybody because there's obviously lots of good knowledge and insight out there. But if we don't do the step of like discernment to figure out what is worth our time and not, and what makes sense for us to take in and not, it can be like really treacherous because we can start to become someone that we didn't choose to be. And the most important element or ingredient to discern from is our own self-understanding of who we want to be and what we care about and what matters to us. Because if we don't know that, then there's very little to like discern against, right? Because then you're just kind of objectively you're just taking in information and trying to like objectively decide whether it's good or bad. And when it comes to like us deciding our lives and shaping who we are, there is no objective good or bad or right or wrong. The only baseline is what we define it as. And if we haven't done we haven't done the work of defining what does it mean to be a man for ourselves, and what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be masculine and feminine? What do these two energies even entail? Like we haven't done our own work on that front. And really and I mean work to pull out the threads of what we were told growing up, whether it was from our family or friends or teachers or bosses or peers, or the media, society. It is work to strip all of that away and come up with our own definition. I think in a lot of ways, I didn't have my own definition of what it meant to be a woman or a girl per se. I just knew what I felt in my body, which is that I wanted to be active and play sports and be physical, and I wanted to play football. I was I want to tackle things. And there was just not a place for that. And so I didn't have a definition of what I wanted to be, but I knew at least like what felt right to me. And over time, as I got more feedback, I was like, okay, there is room for more feminine to come in. I had to start to define for myself like what I thought being like a good woman or a human meant to me. And I had to test and experiment. Because at first I knew it wasn't any traditional sense. I was like, I don't want to lose my masculinity. I want to be able to have that because my problem solving skills and my get shit done ability is deeply valuable to me. The question then became, how do I allow more of the feminine to come in, and what is my femininity? Like, what does that even entail? And I realized it had much more to do with my feeling sense. It wasn't about clothes. It wasn't about appearance. It was about, how do I feel and interact with the world? How do I express that feeling, right? How do I, how emotive am I, right? And how much do I share that with other people? And how do I approach people? Like, is it with curiosity and questions? Or am I coming in hot, with whatever? Those are the ways that I started to think about, okay, what does my femininity mean to me? And in thinking about this, I think it's important for every single person to think about, but just given what is currently so top of mind in our world, I'm really thinking about boys and young men. And maybe that sounds strange coming from someone who is neither a boy or a young man. It's just, as a human, I just really hope you take the time to allow yourself to explore who you are. Because strong masculine men don't need to call other men betas or any other name. You don't have to put down other boys and men to be masculine. If anything, that's the antithesis of masculinity. Because if you have embodied your masculinity, there's no threat to it. No one can take it away from you. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone else, because you know in your core who you are and how masculine you are. And it doesn't matter if anyone else questions it, because you don't. And so in this age of internet toxicity, and how much men seem to need to or want to reclaim this notion of being a man and masculinity, yes, absolutely, do that. But be careful of what your definition of that is, and make sure it's not anyone else's. It's not influenced by all the narratives out there. That you've really spent the time to be with yourself, to think for yourself, to imagine for yourself what it really means. And to trust that your definition is the only one that matters.